All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA show. So, what I'm going to call this podcast is Stop Living in Guilt. Now, I'm not here to tell you to live any way that you don't want to live, but what I do want to talk about in this podcast is how I see so many people, which includes my friends, family members, always kind of feeling guilty regarding something. And that guilt also taking a toll on them over a substantial amount of time. You know, I've lately been going out a lot with a lot of different friends. We've been doing a lot of different dinners, lunches, even breakfast, just going out, drinks, hanging out, cigars, just meeting up in general. So I've been having like longer conversations with a lot of friends that maybe I didn't have before when I was traveling, or just continuously kind of seeing friends, kind of like when we were younger, I guess you could say. I think as we get older, a lot of us, we end up in relationships, and then we end up in, marriages, or, you're living with, your kids or whatever you're doing. You don't maybe spend as much time with your friends like you used to when you were younger, or you kind of spend time with friends, but it may be dinner, but it's also kind of maybe your kids, their friends' parents or something in that nature. And a lot of times, we're always with family. So put that aside. But what I'm talking about here is kind of like just feeling guilty. And I think I fell for that for a long time. And I still feel that sometimes. You're always kind of feeling like you're not, you're guilty of feeling, I should say, a certain way. You're guilty. Maybe you feel like you didn't make enough money. You didn't educate yourself. You didn't give your kids everything you wanted to give them. Maybe you didn't end up in a situation you wanted to end up in. You may be feeling guilty regarding your parents or things you didn't do in the past regarding certain situations. I'm not going to start here listing all these things, but I do think a lot of us, man, carry all this guilt around. It's almost like a blanket that you can't get rid of. And I don't know if that was younger, kind of us being programmed that if you do this, you're going to get in trouble, and we want you to feel guilty that you don't, hopefully you feel a certain way and you don't do it again. And I understand that when it comes to discipline and things. But I do think as time goes on in our life, we just keep putting more and more stress onto us and bring more and more guilt almost on everything we do, literally from the moment we wake up. It can even be with, even fitness. I bring a lot of that up in my podcast, or health. Like, you feel guilty kind of if you don't go to the gym, right? Or you're not a certain weight. So now you feel guilty regarding gaining weight. Or you may drink a little more than you want to, and you're kind of feeling guilty regarding that. You may do things like, say, I don't know, I don't do it, but I don't care if I did. Let's say you smoke, you may spend a little money on marijuana or something else, and you're like, oh, I wish I didn't do that, even though I like it, but I feel guilty. You may even gamble once in a while. Now, there's a difference between, gambling and losing a little money and then having addiction issues. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about little things that you may even enjoy doing, but even you enjoying yourself doing certain things, you feel guilty about them. Like, I think as a parent, I think I could go through that a lot, because I used to always feel like I had to do all these things for my children, especially living in Orlando, Florida, having season tickets to Disney or having season tickets to Universal, SeaWorld, Wet n Wild, always, traveling, eating out, always feeling like I have to give. And if I wasn't giving, I almost felt guilty, like I got to give my kids everything I didn't have, right? I kind of felt like that. And I think a lot of us feel like that. But, and then on the flip side, when I would do something for myself, I'd go out and spend some money on clothing. I'd be like, oh, you know what? I should have my kids could use this instead of me, or I shouldn't be spending this money here. I should only be spending it here. Again, and I get something that I really wanted or liked, and I'm wearing it or doing something, and I'm feeling guilty regarding what I'm doing. It's kind of nuts. I don't know where all these emotions come into play. And I don't know, sometimes I wonder, a lot of times I talk about programming, like when we're younger or throughout our life, we're being programmed. But I got to blame myself for a lot of shit. And I think a lot of us do. A lot of the way we feel isn't just because of the way we're programmed. We just picked up, I think, to a certain degree, a lot of stupid, emotional, bad habits, I think. And instead of feeling guilty about a lot of things you do, maybe you should start enjoying them. Because I started to feel that way, especially kind of through COVID, because I always, a lot of times, even when working, of course, I'm going to do a lot of things I want to do. But I did have the guilt where I'm like, oh my God, when I was home, I guess you could say a lot of times want to be with my kids, right? And then I'm with my kids. And then when I leave, I feel guilty I'm not always there for them. But I realized as I got older, my kids like their distance from me. And I think a lot of my friends may like their distance from me, my family members. Not where I always felt like, oh, I don't live in Chicago anymore. I feel guilty. I didn't get to see my grandparents as much as I wanted. Years ago, my grandmother, or even my mother living there, or certain family members, I was kind of always carrying the guilt that, wow, I left Chicago. I left a massive Italian family that I love very much. And I'm always kind of here in Florida. I'm enjoying better weather, living what I thought was a better lifestyle. And I'm always kind of feeling guilty regarding that. Again, nobody else really feels that way, I don't think, a lot of times. You may have certain people that are jealous or mad that you left, but on the flip side, all this guilt, no one else feels it a lot of times. Sure, people may be like, hey, you're self-centered and selfish at times, which I am. And I think a lot of us, are at different times in our lives. Whatever, it's our life. But again, what they don't see behind the scenes a little bit is feeling guilty regarding a lot of things. And I don't care if it's as stupid as saying, hey, I want to go have fast food today and eating some McDonald's, and then kind of ruining your whole night because you went and had McDonald's and saying, man, I'm guilty. I just killed my diet. Or you may have, even, it's not just about money or eating or social. It could be like feeling guilty. Say you always want to read a book, you buy a book and you never read it. And then every time you see it, you're like, oh man, why am I not reading that? You're carrying, like, it's kind of all these little things in our life that have these little trigger components, I guess you could say, that make us feel kind of good, make us feel bad. You see a little baby like me, I get all excited. You see a puppy, I'm excited. And then if I see a little girl, I'm like, oh man, where's my kids? Dang, I should have spent more time. Why didn't I text them today? You know what? I had time. I could have ran and met them for lunch, or I should be taking them to dinner tomorrow. Why aren't we at a movie? And then I'm like, then it kind of almost depresses me or exhausts me. I don't know why. Why can't I just enjoy the moment for meeting this other little person, this little child, and liking that, and then later saying, you know what? When I get a chance, I'm going to go, reach out to my daughter, and if they want to meet up, they can meet up, but not carrying the guilt. I don't know, like I said, where that comes from, but I used to think that was only me, like a lot of people out there thinking they're only going through these things. But the more I talk to people, the guilt factor is kind of nuts right now. And I definitely think through the pandemic and COVID, a lot of people are second guessing a lot of things they did in their life. It could be maybe not saving as much money as they wanted. And I will wrap it up with this. Guilt, again, like say, because we're in Florida right now, or I live in Florida. So there's this kind of component now where everybody's moving here and the housing market prices are going up, right? So if you didn't buy a house because you just didn't, now there's the guilt because you may have wanted to buy a house, but you waited too long, but now the market keeps going up and you're like, oh man. So every day I hear people like, man, I wish I would have, I wish I would have brought a home, or I wish I would have got a bigger home for the money. And then you have the other people too that, they have a house, for instance, right? And then they sold it, like say a year ago. And they're kind of upset they didn't wait because they didn't know the market was going to have this. So they're kind of guilty on the other end. We're not guilty, but I would say kind of mad. They wish they could have made more money. Again, this is all kind of hindsight shit. And it kind of all plays into the guilt, I think, as well. And I've done podcasts on, living your life in hindsight, which is ridiculous. But I think that almost falls in line with always kind of feeling guilty as well regarding what it is. It could be even religion. It could be political, whatever the hell you're kind of carrying around. Make the best, I think, of everything instead of the worst. And I may do a podcast on that. Because a lot of things that you feel guilty about, I'm telling you, it's not worth carrying all that baggage. I'm just telling you, maybe if you like carrying it and you like feeling guilty, then that's on you. But I would definitely recommend really addressing what do you really want to do and start doing it. What's making you feel guilty? And if those things are making you feel guilty, address them. Learn to deal with them. If you truly feel like, you're guilty about certain things, change it. Don't sit around year after year or month after month and keep feeling guilty over things that you don't even really, you shouldn't be guilty over. or feeling guilty, I should say. So, anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there, not to get long-winded. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up. But I just thought I would do a quick podcast on this, really start thinking about what's making you guilty. But, I just, like I said earlier, I just see so many people always feeling guilty about something or someone or something they did, and then also carrying that shit around like for weeks, months, years, never letting certain things go. We all make mistakes. I don't give a shit who you are. All right? And I get things are hard a lot of times. I think we all go through that. But again, to carry all that guilt around and let it deteriorate our mind and our actions, because I also think a lot of times when dealing with guilt, we don't realize how we behave around others or the toll it really takes on us. So, anyways, I wish you nothing but the best. Take care.